I'm very excited to introduce our next panel, Innovation, Sustainability, and People, a value chain approach to the built environment and communities. This is a fascinating example of the power of the shared value ecosystem. The built environment ecosystem brings together several powerful drivers. People, issues like population health, community health, workforce and employment issues. Sustainability, environmental drivers, such as clean energy, water savings, global warming, floods, hurricanes, etc., that have so greatly impacted our urban infrastructure around the world. And innovation, technological drivers. We now have smart lights, smart water meters, bricks that breathe, windows that adjust to the seasons, and of course, as we learned about yesterday, artificial intelligence. Our panelists today offer us a window into this dynamic, shared value opportunity. Please join me in welcoming Beirne Fallon, Global Head of Corporate Affairs for Hilton Worldwide, Richard Kennedy, President and CEO of Skanska, USA, and Maxwell Young, Vice President of Marketing and Communications for 100 Resilient Cities. Please join me on stage.
So we have on stage two very exciting panelists. We have Katie Fallon and Richard Kennedy. Richard Kennedy is the president and CEO of Skanska USA, where he's been since 2004, and in that time has played key roles in landing and building a broad range of projects, including the UN headquarters, renovation, the World Trade Center Transit Hub, and the new Terminal B at LaGuardia, for which all the frequent travelers in this room, thank you.
Don't blame me for traffic,
yes. He's helped grow the company into one of the largest and most respected construction and development companies in the US, with revenues of almost $7 billion. Katie Fallon is the global head of corporate affairs for Hilton, meaning she's responsible for managing the company's communications, government relations, and corporate responsibility efforts. Before that, she served as the senior advisor and director of legislative affairs for President Obama, and as the president's chief liaison to Congress. Before the White House, she was staff director for the Senate Democratic Policy and Communications Center, led by Senator Chuck Schumer, where she was also my boss. In their personal lives, both Richard and Katie are deeply committed to the social good, serving on the boards of numerous charities and receiving awards for their work. Finally, I'm Max Young, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for 100 Resilient Cities, an organization created by the Rockefeller Foundation, dedicated to making cities more resilient to the social, economic, and physical challenges of the 21st century. I'm particularly excited to be here because my organization has a deep commitment to enabling shared value on the part of our nearly 100 private sector partners. As we've heard a number of times during the last couple of days, 100 Resilient Cities believes that in order to truly make cities in the world better in both good times and bad for all of their citizens, companies need to be able to see a business case for doing so. A great deal of our work is dedicated to trying to create a market for products that city leaders, both in government and out, can use. And it's particularly good to be here with these two panelists because the companies they represent have such a huge impact on the fabric of cities, both through the hundreds of thousands of people they employ and through the actual physical characteristics of the complexes they design, build, and run. I've seen firsthand how thoughtful stewardship of these complexes impact those who live and work on and around them. And this is not just about how buildings are constructed, about green standards, but about the entire placement of the building within the community, its footprints, and its impact on place, people, and the economy. These two influential companies are prime examples of how different industries can have an immense impact on social challenges in the shared value space, while also improving operational efficiency and enhancing their innovation, competitiveness, and success. So using that as a frame for this conversation, let me start with a simple question for you both. How does your company think about shared value, and what are some of the key initiatives you're engaging in this field? Katie, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, thank you, Max, and thank you all for having me here this morning. Welcome to the Conrad at Hilton Hotel. And Max was prepping me for this panel yesterday, and as he can vouch, in the middle of the conversation, one of my colleagues burst through the door who has been researching our archives because we're celebrating our 100th birthday next May, and we're really excited about that. But as part of the archival research, my colleague learned yesterday that we invented the martini. So I think that was one of our biggest shared value contributions.
We'll have to have one in honor of shared value. Yeah.
So, but in all seriousness, Hilton is part of the fastest growing employment sectors in the world, travel and tourism. It represents about 10.4% of global GDP, and every one of 5 new jobs created is going and being employed in our sector. And so that creates a great opportunity for us as a business, as part of this industry. And as a result, we're growing rapidly. We open about a hotel a day. And when we open a hotel, we have to bring the community along with us. It's a months to years long journey. And once the hotel opens, we hope to be there for a lifetime. So we do that by recruiting and retaining local talent, investing and buying locally. But I want to focus on the recruiting and retaining local talent part because this is a massive business opportunity for us, or challenge for us. So given how much volume we have to hire on a day-to-day basis, and given that that is against a backdrop of a global youth unemployment crisis, we are trying to use our employment engine as a way to solve a grave societal challenge, but also meet our very immediate business needs. So we created a corporate responsibility program that was derived from this business need called Open Doors Commitment in 2014. And we committed to preparing, mentoring, and training 1 million young people around the world for a hospitality career by 2019. And today we're over 800,000 towards that goal. But we've learned in that process that there's a pretty serious skills gap in a lot of the countries where we're developing and opening hotels. So we've had to go above and beyond that commitment and actually create a digital training module for soft skills that's regionalized in some of the countries, particularly the frontier countries where we're operating, and we call that Passport to Success. And in the last couple of years, we've partnered with the International Youth Foundation to roll that out. And we've seen both our employment and our retention rates rise dramatically for those hard-to-employ youth, particularly in the countries where we're developing hotels for the first time. So I think that is our strongest example of shared value in the sense that you've asked about, and a program and an initiative that has no end in sight for us as the global age of travel continues.
And this is particularly interesting because it's not just an environmentally focused program. This is a way of getting further back in the value chain and really impacting the people who live in the community.
Exactly. It has more relevance to our HR efforts than to our corporate responsibility efforts, but corporate responsibility has had to take up the mantle to meet that business need.
Thanks, Kitty. Richard?
Yeah, hi, good morning. So just a bit about Skanska. Skanska is a publicly traded company on the Stockholm Stock Exchange. We operate in about 11 countries. We have about 42,000 employees globally. Here in the US, about 9,000 employees. Like many other companies, we like to describe ourselves as a value-based company. We have 4 core values. We say care for life. We care about people's safety on our job sites. That's a really big thing for a construction and development company. We care for the environment, the communities in which we work and operate, the ground on which we actually build our projects. We like to partner with people. We have a value called Be Better Together. We commit to our customers, and we act ethically and transparently. It's sort of ground-up values that all of us share in the company. On the back of that, when it comes to shared values and creating profit from that, we have our corporate slogan, if you like. I don't like the word slogan, but I say our focus is profit with purpose. We can't have a business unless we make money. But we want to have a company that does good things for our society, and these two things go together. On the back of those values and that approach to business, we have a sustainability agenda, and it's focused really around our core business. It's not to do good for the world. It's good for our business, which then does good things in our society. Safety, ethics, green, sustainable building, community investment. We operate in cities all over the world. And it's important that we're tied into our communities and we invest in them and we're part of them. And diversity and inclusion, Governor mentioned that earlier in the last panel. That's a critical thing for us. For me, I'm a big advocate for inclusion in our company, and the original approach to that was around diversity, bringing in people, gender equity, ethnic equity in our company. It's a traditionally male-dominated white industry, construction. And so we started this diversity program years ago. Inclusion started to creep in, and I really grabbed onto that as a critical component of it. It's not about, and I would say to people it started as a socially minded effort, but I would very clear to people that from my perspective, it's not about, I say this isn't about saving society, it's about good business. I wanted to ground everything around inclusion into good business, because fundamentally that's just about people understanding each other, communicating with each other, when they bring their perspectives and the best of themselves, I've heard that today, to the table. We have the best communication we can have, we generate the best ideas, and it's all good for the bottom line. I mean, as a company, we try to approach shared value from that perspective. So it feels very natural to me. Our green efforts, for example, making buildings green, less energy or more energy efficient. That's about reducing mechanical systems in buildings and lowering the price to deliver better, more cost-effective solution to our clients. So for me, the core of our business ties in very well with things that are good for our society.
And so you've been at the company since 2004. Can you talk a little bit about how the commitment to shared value has evolved and changed in response to market forces and customer demand, if it has?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I joined the company, we have a saying in safety in Skanska, we're on a journey to zero. We want to have zero accidents, zero incidents on all our projects. 42,000 people in our company working with an immense supply chain. We have hundreds of thousands of people working on any given day on a construction and development project around the world, in our operations. Getting to zero incidents in safety is an incredibly difficult challenge. But we say it's a journey to that, and I feel the same way about this area. Community investment. We talked about this a little bit before. Every day here in New York, it's normal for me to get a request from some charity to donate, to buy a table, to participate in this, to support some societal cause. Since I've been with the company over the past 15 years, I've seen us move from a more reactionary approach to that, sort of, okay, they're asking us to participate, we'll participate, to taking a more strategic view of it and how we can help change society by looking at the issues that are facing the communities in which we're operating and really use our competencies as a company to tackle them. In Sweden, for example, we have Bokluk, which is a low-cost quality housing initiative. That was built purely to build profitable business around low-cost housing, but it was there to drive a need. Here in New York, minority and women business enterprises, it's a big societal need that we have. We've created a building blocks program. It does social good, but it's good for us to create a more stable supply chain for us as a business. It's those sorts of things. I've seen us, we've just moved from being philanthropic to more strategic philanthropy, if you will, but it ties right back into our profitability as a business. So.
Yeah, and that's so important because it's hard to overstate how much of an impact your company has on the fabric of, we mentioned 3 giant projects just in this city alone, and that can be replicated across the world. And so by being strategic about those projects, you can have this massive impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Katie, a similar question. You had mentioned that social responsibility has grabbed the mantle of some of these things and driven them. Have you found that that's changed a little bit over the last, you've been at the company for 2 years almost, 17 months, that's changed a little bit as this movement has gained momentum?
So I think we're lucky as a company, as a 100-year-old company, in that our founder, and some of you in the room that have heard me speak on this before have heard me say this, but our founder, Conrad Hilton, 100 years ago, sort of set out to launch the first hospitality company based off of, quote unquote, a divine mission to spread international peace through travel and tourism. So that purpose, that mission has been in our DNA for nearly a century. So a lot of our what we would label corporate responsibility initiatives today have just organically grown out of the business because of that legacy and that heritage. And I'll give you an idea. I'll give you an example, sorry. We have a proprietary software we use across all of our hotels, 5,300 hotels around the world, called Lightstay, that was developed as an operational tool for our hotel operators to create efficiencies across water, energy, and waste. And that was not designed as a corporate responsibility program. Of course, our corporate responsibility team, we put a lot of stock in helping to ensure that that story gets told outside of the business, because since the inception of that program, which is a brand standard across our hotels, we've been able to save our hotel operators and owners $1 billion in savings across those 3 categories. But in the process, we've reduced our overall carbon emissions by 24% across the globe, which is hugely significant. So this is a program that was built and arose from business needs to create operational efficiencies that now we're driving externally and sharing that technology outside of our industry in the hopes that other people can adopt these best practices across big campuses or global footprints like Hilton's.
So that's a great example of corporate leadership, and you both represent companies that are leaders in your field. Can you talk a little bit about how you're driving this change in mindset towards shared value and not just responding to consumer demand, but trying to induce it and incite it? This is a good example. I don't know if there are others.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and it's very timely for us because one of the things we're realizing is that millennial travelers are becoming more a bigger portion of the pie of travelers. They have different demands of businesses. They make consumer purchase decisions based off of the values that the brand espouses and whether or not it's consistent with theirs. And our customers are no different. We pulse check them every month or so. And the last time we did a customer survey, 86% of Hilton guests said that our environmental and social impact mattered to them in their purchase decisions and would matter even more in 12 months from now. But then we realized that we don't really share what we're doing behind the scenes of a hotel with our guests or invite them to participate in that mission with us. So there's a new technology that we rolled out a couple months ago called Connected Room, which will be at every Hilton hotel in a couple of years, which connects your smartphone to your room when you enter the room. Everything from lighting, heating, air conditioning, your entertainment preferences will sync up to your smartphone. And then you yourself, as a guest, will be able to track your own environmental footprint. And we can even share with you through that app what your social impact is by staying at that hotel. So there's a lot of potential there to bring the customers along on this journey with us. And I think that is going to be add value for both sides of that consumer equation.
Richard, how is
I
Skanska?
have a question. Can I drive my Spotify through
Yes.
in my room? I pictured myself dancing in my Hilton hotel.
Yeah, music too.
Cool.
What's on
That was my
what's on
imagination.
that list?
Oh,
You
lots.
can even
It's
have
very
your
eclectic
family
place.
photographs which
Yeah.
pop up on the screen.
Yeah, see, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So from my perspective, Skanska is a big company. We're very local. Construction company is by nature a local company, development company. We live and work and breathe in the cities and communities in which we build. And one of the questions that we had, obviously we prepare for these things somewhat. One of the questions was, how do you change consumer behavior? And my thought about that was, we don't change consumer behavior, I don't think, in our company. We're a service provider, clients like Hilton and other large companies that build for their portfolios. And what we try to do is influence them with the competencies that we have in the company and the experiences that we've developed in the company focused on this area. Again, we have these values that lead to a sustainability agenda. It drives our focus. Where are we going to play in this space? What type of clients are we going to look for, to work with, so that we can, as Governor Patrick said, have a value-based feeling about what we're doing and a purpose to what we're doing. And so part of the challenge we have as an industry is we are driven by cost and schedule guarantees, which I'm sure the same to you, right? Every quarter, again, as Governor Patrick said, I have to show up and I have to deliver numbers. And how I do that is, obviously within my purview to some extent, but it depends on the external market. The reality is, at least in the US, I think we see more of this in our Nordic operations, the demand for green buildings, deep green buildings and technologies that are highly energy efficient are less in the US. But we put our resources and our competencies in places where we can, and we try to develop experiences around that, and then we try to bring that to our clients and try to influence their decision, get in early when we can have the most positive impact. And you just see, I forget who said it, was Gary, I think it was a freight train. It kind of feels like that. It just continues to build momentum. It's not incredibly fast, but it's incredibly powerful. And that's the way I see us using the platform that we have, strung out all over Europe and the US, building projects everywhere to try to influence the process as best we can and create shared value.
So what is that freight train going to encounter? What are you excited about over the next year, 2 years in this space?
I tell you, I'll put myself as an example. I'm a lawyer by training, construction development executive by profession. the fact that I'm sitting on the stage, I'm not an expert in green, I'm not an expert in sustainability, but we have those people in our company, and I've become more and more acquainted with this because it's becoming more and more a core part of our business. What I like about it on a personal level is I feel drawn to it personally. I feel like I'm doing good things. The fact that I'm sitting here today talking about this, the fact that I talk to clients about developing workforce in our communities, it's fantastic. It makes me feel good about being at Skanska, being at work every day, and I think I see that momentum building. That's really exciting to me.
Katie, how many employees does Hilton have?
We have 380,000 globally.
So that's a huge community. How do you incorporate those 380,000 employees into this process of shared value? How do you bring them to the table on this?
So, like I said, I have it sort of easy because it's in our, I think, cultural DNA as a company, and it's not difficult for me to try to bring along the team with us. In fact, we have, each hotel operates as its own small business or its own player in the community. Each hotel has its own philanthropic or volunteer ecosystem around it that's really designed by the team members that work there and the general manager that runs that property. So what we try to do is aggregate all the good work that we're doing across all 5,300 hotels to tell a global story about our impact. But really, it's these bespoke initiatives that are coming from our team members in each community that are driving our philanthropic spirit outside the walls of our properties. This Conrad that we're sitting in, for example, partners with the Friends of Hudson River Park, and the team members on their free time go and volunteer in the park to do restorations and cleanups. The chef has a garden on the roof where he grows fruits and vegetables for the restaurant, and team members volunteer to help him in the garden. This hotel is one of 2,000 Hilton hotels that takes all of your partially used soap, recycles it, repurposes it, and sends it to developing countries where they have high rates of hygiene-related illnesses. The team members take great pride in that, particularly a lot of the housekeepers who are know that soap is going back to their home countries and saving lives. And in fact, since we started that soap recycling partnership with Clean the World in 2014, the death rates of children under the age of 5 in the recipient countries has been reduced by 35%. And they know that they're having that impact, and it makes them feel like they're part of something bigger than their 9-to-5 job.
So I'm glad that you mentioned impact and gave a statistic, because it'd be interesting to know, I think for everyone in this audience, how you measure impact across all of your programs and all of your shared value initiatives. I don't know, Richard, if you can share a little bit about that.
I think that's one of the challenges that we face. So I said before, there's great momentum around this. Measuring the impact of this is difficult, right? I can show up every quarter, business people in here, you have to, quarterly results, what's the profit, what are your operating expenses, where are you, pure financials. How you measure the impact of this in terms of bottom line results is not clear to me yet. Green projects, they put out the same bottom line as the other projects, but there's no way to say this, because of this, it yielded that. The impact that we have on our communities or in inclusion things. And Governor Patrick mentioned proof of scale. I think that's the place where if we can focus as government, business, NGOs, how we work together to develop the proof points around this. That is going to be key, because that's what drives business. As philanthropic or as socially minded as any boardroom can be, it's still the bottom line. Mm-hmm. You have to be focused on that. If you're not going to be in business.
You mentioned scale, which I think is so important in both businesses, because if you find something that works in one community or one building, you can scale it up to thousands of locations around the world, tens of thousands of locations around the world. Does your board and your leadership recognize that opportunity, and are they supportive of you all in the shared value initiatives and CR? This is an audience question, by the way, so yeah. Whoever asked it.
Well, I think I'm one of the more frequent executive committee members in front of our board, and it's because they want to hear more about what we're doing in the shared value space and how we're connecting it to the guest experience. And that's, I think, for them, they're seeing the future of this millennial traveler dynamic, where we're going to have to be more visible in our behind-the-scenes efforts to create greater loyalty and have more connections with those millennial travelers. So it's very high in mind for them. The good thing about us for measuring ROI across the environmental work that we're doing is that we've had this system-wide network data collection and measurement network in place through Lightstay. So every month we're able to calibrate how much we're saving across the portfolio. We're able to communicate to the owners what that means for them in terms of their bottom line. So that's a very helpful tool that we use for the ROI.
And I think the Lightstay example is particularly important because not only are you measuring the impact of each guest, but you're then sharing that with the guests and using that as a way to entice them back.
Yeah, but that's the next step in the journey, is to make sure that to empower the guests to know what the role that they're playing in that endeavor through Connected Room.
So you both work for very global companies. Our next audience question is about how the interest in shared value in the built environment differ by geographic region across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, Africa.
Yeah, I can give a short answer. I mean, it really is, it's different not only between Europe, our operations in the Nordics, they're very focused on sustainability in the Nordics. So I think I'm very proud to be part of a Swedish company because they lead in that area. And when you move over to the U.S., it depends on the jurisdiction. I'll tell you that our operations, are in Texas are less focused on sustainability than our operations in the Pacific Northwest. So what we try to do, and you mentioned it, I think it's absolutely right. You have these general managers of the local properties. They need to cater to the local demand, and then you can use the power and platform of a large company to find those things, draw upon good practices from one place to another and bring them to other locations. That's how we just try to use that. It's decentralized with a singular platform that you can draw from to bring to your local markets.
So that's a really interesting example. Can you talk a little bit more about the tension between, for example, the Pacific Northwest and your Texas operations, and how, as both a national and global company, you address those?
Well, they have fist fights all the time.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No,
who wins?
There's let them decide. No, just kidding. There's really no tension between them. They're in different markets. Where the tension arises, in my experience, is when we come together as a leadership team in the U.S. and we have costs, we have overhead. Where are we going to put our money? Where are we going to invest our company's resources to drive the business strategically? For the Pacific Northwest, great focus on sustainable projects. We do a lot of great work up there. It may not be the overhead that we put into sustainability, for example, may not be so appealing to the folks in Texas, for example. I'm not giving Texas a hard time. It's just a reality that it's got a different approach to this issue than the Pacific Northwest. That's where, for me, these proof points become so important. I said before, strategic philanthropy, and as I thought about it a little more, it's really it's strategic investment in these. We have to start proving. I have to prove to my business leaders out there in the market that the money that I working with the executive leadership, decide to deploy for these things actually is good for their bottom line. And once they believe that, then they will harness it in their local markets, and that's how that freight train just gets more and more steam behind it.
Katie, this question mentions Airbnb, so I presume it's for you. How will you use shared value to drive competitive advantage, not just operational efficiencies? And how do you use it to market against disruptors like Airbnb?
So we don't set out to use it to market against disruptors, to use our corporate responsibility shared value platform to market against disruptors. But I do think we have natural advantages in differentiating due to our massive geographical footprint and how all those 380,000 team members and all those 5,300 hotels sort of enroll in the central vision of our culture and purpose across the world. So it's like, I like to call it, because of my former life, it's like having a massive campaign infrastructure where everyone's very proud to be with the Hilton family, and as part of the Hilton family, they have certain obligation to their community that they have to live out to perform well in our company, to align with our core strategic objectives. And I do think that gives us a great advantage to rally our scale and scope around a global mission. And it's, I think, a lot more difficult for disaggregated platform type companies to have that overarching network effect that really resonates in the communities. So it's a great question, and if we were in the hallway talking privately, I'd probably answer with a little more edge.
Yeah. Airbnb.
We pay taxes, for example.
There you go.
Do you find that you and your company spend time debating whether initiative qualifies as shared value. You had mentioned that light stay was something that came out of the business side, that CR grabbed on because you realize it's both media and corporate responsibility impact. Do you find that that's typically how it goes? Is there a debate over whether something counts? You can check a box.
You want to take that? No, I think that I think it feels odd at a company like Hilton that for 100 years has always sort of looked out for the communities that it operates in. I think it's more odd for them to have a distinct corporate responsibility function because everyone takes it just naturally to be a part of their core business function. So I mean, we're very blessed in that regard. We rarely have to go in and make a case for why our business partners should be adopting our vision or our version of CR programming around the world. It comes the other way. It comes grassroots from the hotels, and we say, oh, we would like to bundle this into our platform, which we call Travel with Purpose, and use it as a mobilizing force for our culture, but also to share best practices across the hotels because we are the central convening of those ideas for the business.
Richard?
Yeah, I exactly like you. It's core to our business. What's great about the concept of shared values, it gives us a better way to talk about it, I think, and to connect with other businesses, the ecosystem that we talk about. I just think it's a good common language to use more than changing the way we're thinking. It's just tapping into what's now becoming a stronger movement, I think.
Great, thanks. So I think we're out of time. I don't have time to ask either of you if you're running for president.
No,
Please don't ask, please.
But I will be launching the Deval Patrick PAC today.
All right, we made a deal here. That's great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.